Hello and welcome to Gameonysus Weekly, your one-stop shop for video game news, keeping up with the biggest stories so you don't have to. I'm your host, Janet Garcia, and today we're talking about the Twitch leak, California rejecting Activision Blizzard settlements, and game updates like Sora and Smash, and GTA getting remastered. All these stories and so much more on today's episode. Starting with Twitch's massive leak. For this, I'm pulling from Video Games Chronicle with the headline, "The entirety of Twitch has reportedly been leaked." Subhead, source codes and user payouts among the data released in the 128GB torrent. The user posted a 125GB torrent link to 4chan on Wednesday, stating that the leak was intended to foster more disruption and competition in the online video streaming space because their community is a disgusting, toxic cesspool. Twitch has confirmed the leak is authentic, saying, "We can confirm a breach has taken place. Our team is working with urgency to understand the extent of this. We will update the community as soon as additional information is available. Thank you for bearing with us." The leaked Twitch data reportedly includes the entirety of Twitch's source code, with commit history going back to its early beginnings, creator payout reports from 2019, mobile, desktop, and console Twitch clients, proprietary SDKs and internal AWS services used by Twitch, every other property that Twitch owns, including IGDB and CurseForge, an unreleased Steam competitor, codenamed Vapor from Amazon Game Studios, Twitch internal red teaming tools designed to improve security by having staff pretend to be hackers. And Twitch has since said there's no indication that login details were exposed or that credit card information was taken. Of course, whenever these things happen, it's recommended that you change your passwords anyway just to be safe and to turn on two-factor authentication if you don't already have that on. In general, any site you should have that on if possible. And one of the biggest conversations I've seen from this is a discussion around who gets paid what on Twitch. And that discussion has been primarily twofold from what I've seen in the space. On one hand, there are people talking about, wow, it's wild how some of these really big streamers who, like, maybe they're not like absolute top tier, but they're on the higher end, don't actually make that great of a living on Twitch. Like, you can be doing really well on Twitch and still be making like minimum wage money or below minimum wage money. And the other conversation, of course, is, wow, some of these people are making a lot of money on Twitch, and of the top earners, it's there's a stark lack of diversity among those top earners, which that's a conversation that's always good to have and that we should constantly be bringing forward. Obviously, I'm not necessarily saying that like, oh, this is great because now we're having this conversation, because we've been having this conversation for a while. So I feel like it's just reigniting the spark of that conversation rather than the start point of it. It's something that I've seen creators in the space talk about a lot for a long time. And it's definitely something where that narrative of women have it easy on Twitch and the best way to be successful on Twitch is to be like a hot woman is such a offensive, but also very inaccurate depiction of what's going on in the Twitch landscape, because we've seen time and time again that's not true. The top earners are men. And I think that conversation becomes even more interesting when you think of it in the context of Twitch rolling out beta features for paid boosting to allow you to like pay to kind of get onto the like recommended feed, like the potential of being on more people's recommendeds. And then maybe that can convert to actual views, but like you're really just paying to be on, you're paying to have the algorithm show your stream to more people, but more people won't necessarily be clicking into your stream. And I think there's just constantly that conversation of how can Twitch be better, just period. But one of those ways being in highlighting more creators and celebrating diversity more and just really trying to push for a more fair and balanced space. And then the other thing, of course, that's interesting from this is this Steam competitor. Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit surprised. I can't say I'm completely shocked. I mean, Amazon is such a powerhouse, and Amazon's involvement of owning Twitch, and they have their own game studios. Like, it does make sense. And we see a lot of these different, launchers or services. Many people are competing for being the place that you go and buy your PC games. And that's why sometimes you see different game studios not have their game on Steam. They're like, no, you have to use our like proprietary launcher to like play this game. So yeah, I'm wondering when we're going to see that come to fruition, if it's going to come to fruition. I'd imagine so. And I'm curious as to how that'll shake out in terms of leveraging all the power they already have through Twitch in terms of the gaming space. I think it could end up being really interesting. And yeah, I'm just curious as to what that rollout's going to look like and how they're sort of going to try to differentiate themselves within the market for that. So that's pretty much everything on the Twitch leak so far. And of course, hopefully nothing super harmful comes from this in terms of specific creators having their private information leaked and, you know, getting doxxed and getting harassed and things like that. Because that's always the big concern when these kind of leaks happen, where there is a lot of sensitive information in terms of, you know, payouts and all these other things. So hopefully all that stuff is safe. It does seem like this was done as a sort of, the comment, you know, of like why it was leaked. It was like to just sort of try to bring down Twitch and force them to pay attention. I don't think that's going to necessarily be the turning point of Twitch or anything like that, but I don't think it was done with malicious intent to like the individual creators at least. So hopefully, you know, it stays within the realm of the intentions that it initially had. And now for another update on the Activision Blizzard situation. And this is actually exactly following up on a story that we either had last week or the week before that. I think it was last week, and I'm pulling from Axios as well. So it's sort of creating this nice through line in terms of this story. But the headline reads, California plans to object to Activision settlement. In new court filings, California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing has indicated that it plans to officially object to September's proposed anti-harassment settlement between Activision Blizzard and the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Why it matters. A scrap settlement could extend the scrutiny Activision faces from a myriad of investigations and lawsuits while delaying or nixing a planned $18 million victims fund. While Activision and the EEOC have presented the settlement as a means for justice for some workers, critics have said it also lets Activision begin to turn the page relatively quickly. Between the lines, the DFEH's filing focuses on the technicality of when it can object, urging the court to let it do so before the plan causes irreparable harm. The DFEH's objections, hinted in these preliminary filings, focus on the EEOC's settlement's lack of mention of its own suit and potential damages victims could receive. It also criticizes language in the plan that could lead people who settle under the EEOC agreement to release Activision from any other claims. I think having come off of the fact that the last report on this was discussing the $18 million settlement as not so much as a win, but a not enough situation, something that's a bit of a slap in the face to what victims have faced and what's going on with Activision Blizzard. For those reasons, I think this is good news that the DFEH is pushing back on this and saying, no, we're going to see this through to its entirety. It's not going to be just something that you can put a little bit of money into, because it also 18 million, like it sounds like a lot, but it really isn't that much, to just kind of quickly begin to move on with the rest of what Activision Blizzard's company's career is going to look like. And obviously things get complicated as you have like all these different entities involved. And I think here we're really seeing the impact of having so much attention on what's going on in Activision Blizzard. And with that attention is pressure, is pushing for change, and hopefully that change gets here. I talked about some of these stories on Games Daily because I did that for like the last 2 days, and certainly it was a conversation that like I had with Blessing of, we can't really think of a time where a story of this ilk has gone on for this long, especially because, and part of that is because like some aspects of legal proceedings are not shared with the public, but another part of that is just that a lot of times when companies or individuals get called out on things, it is very much a flash in the pan. It is, the attention for a week or two, and then it is over. So to see this still continue, it does have me optimistic for real change to happen here. Or at least, if not real change, real consequences to Activision Blizzard. Next up, we've seen it in the indie space, but now we're seeing it in the AAA space as well. Eidos Montreal and Eidos Sherbrooke are shifting to the 4-day work week. This comes directly from their official posting on their website. And for those who might need a refresher or just kind of an additional context to these studios, Eidos Montreal is currently working on the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy game. Here's the info from the post. Both Eidos Montreal and Eidos Sherbrooke will be shifted to a 4-day work week spread across 32 hours. So this is not the same amount of hours put into 4 days. This is less time at work. They said this initiative is another step towards the embodiment of the studio's values, building a healthy, creative, and sustainable work environment for our employees. Currently, our various teams are working on the development of transition plans to ensure success and maintain the highest standard in the industry. And again, as far as it being 32 hours, they said this idea is not to condense the working hours into 4 days, but rather to review our ways of doing things and our quality time invested with the aim of working better. Above all, we want to increase the productivity and well-being of our employees. Concretely, we want to reduce the time at work, but increase the quality of the time that we have invested, whether it's on a team basis or for the studio as a whole, a promising right balance for everything. We hope that this will eliminate unnecessary time and build on efficiency, for example, by reducing internal meetings from 1 hour to 30 minutes. As far as how they came up with this idea, they said, we have been working for a while about how we can, when it came to how they came up with this, they said, we have been wondering for a while about how can an ecosystem and a company increase their efficiency without compromising the well-being of their employees. With remote work, which has transformed the way we collaborate, we had already started an important cultural transition with the implementation of a rest period, access to a personal financial advisor, access to a telemedicine platform, reimbursement of mental health care and physical activity costs. With the various pilot projects all over the world, whether in Iceland, in the civil service, or other examples of companies operating in technology industries, the results are conclusive. We are convinced that this renewed management of working time will help cultivate the creativity and motivation of teams and become a real driver of innovation and performance. This definitely came as a surprise, especially on the heels of a fairly big release, Guardians of the Galaxy, which you imagine is like pretty far along its development cycle, considering how close the game is to coming out. And then also, like, in context of this announcement, like, I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't announce this if they have to, like, delay the game. So I'm guessing that rollout of that game is going to go over smoothly. But it does strike me as a little bit surprising that they are transitioning at this time or announcing it at this time, because I do worry that some of and I don't know how much public perception will even like affect how they operate their business. I feel like while you should be listening to fans to a degree, the whole point of you being in that more position of like power in terms of creativity is that you have to like know better than people that like aren't professional in that industry, and it's like kind of this blend of hearing people out while also having the leadership to make the call yourself. Because I am worried that I don't think Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be good. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and I wonder if people are going to like point to this and say like, oh, this is why. But at the same time, I would like to think that the studio has enough to force it. Like they know how they're working and what they're doing to make those calls for themselves. But anyway, on the whole, I'm very excited about this. I'm very pro the 4-day work week for pretty much all jobs. And I think, generally speaking, the 4-day work week is the next work revolution. I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, but I feel like that's where we're heading. There's been so many studies done showing that not only does it improve work, like the work that's done is better, it's faster, it's more productive, but everyone's happier. So it's like if you can do something to make people happier and make the work better, like it doesn't make any sense not to do it. I feel like it's just such a stubborn layer of our current work culture as a society that we don't want to take our foot off the gas, because especially in America, specifically, like I'm speaking from like an American perspective, there's that hustle culture, that bootstrap culture. Like a big part of American culture is the idea of the American dream. And the American dream is completely predicated on the idea of working hard. And the more you're working hard and the harder you're working, the more time you're putting into something, the more effort you put into something, you can achieve anything. And while I think elements of the American dream are definitely inspiring, and I definitely have integrated some of those philosophies into my own personal philosophies as someone that is American and is inherently, entrenched in capitalism, and everything I do is around that. And that's kind of the case to survive for everybody, I think. At the same time, like that's a very double-edged sword where we see that goes south in a lot of ways for a lot of people. So I think that's sort of the big hurdle to getting folks on board with 4-day work week. The idea of like, oh, like it's just people being lazy, people don't want to work anymore, But again, it's really just been proven time and time again with so many different studies. I love how they're mentioning just cutting meetings down, because like having worked in an office structure, there's a lot of meetings, and it does feel like, and there's a study that I had looked at that cultureamp.com had like cited. Like they did a blog post on like the 40-hour work week and the history of that. And in a study that was recently done, it was mentioned that like 40% of time at work for people was like doing the main activities, and then another 40% was like meetings, calls, and tasks that disrupt work, like distractions basically. And then like 15% was emails or something. I know that math is a little bit off, but I forget the nuance of the percentages for the two main ones. But yeah, like it's the joke on The Office of, you know, with how Michael is, when do you guys find time to work? And they find we find little pockets during the day. That's how a lot of jobs are, unfortunately. So I think they have like a sound plan for at least that level of shifting over. And yeah, I'm really excited to see it. Again, I talk about it all the time. The 40-hour work week did not come out of thin air. Before the 40-hour work week, people were working 80, 100 hours regular. And I know there are people out there that still work those kind of hours. I'm not saying that like that doesn't exist for people. Folks always want to come in to these conversations and be like, oh, well, I'm out here with 60, 80 hours. Like, that's not what we're here to talk about. It's like the general working conditions. 40 is the standard. It was standardized during, you know, when factory work really was on the rise in the factory system and Henry Ford and all that. And like that, the 40 hours was fought for and decided. And it's been so many years, and so much of humanity has changed over those years. And yet we still are clinging to this 40-hour work week. And I think it inherently wouldn't it have to be outdated? Like, what are the odds of that still working for people? And, you know, we do it, we make it work. It's how it's been for a long time, but I think it can be better. And I think this is a really cool solution. So yeah, shout out to the 4-day work week. I hope Guardians of the Galaxy is good. And shout out to, you know, Eidos Montreal and Eidos Sherbrooke. I mean, I would love to see this become standard in the industry, to the point where to be competitive and appealing studio, you have to offer that 4-day work week. And hopefully you also see it implemented well, because I can definitely see worlds where, oh, it's a 4-day work week, but like not really, you know? So I don't think this is a magic wand to like crunch or other problems in this field, but I like the idea. I like where it's going with that. And hopefully it works out really well, and they share the things they learned from this process, because I'm sure that there will be a lot of value there to distribute to other studios. Next up, Randy Pitchford steps down, but just to take another role. It's really more of a leadership shuffle situation. For this, we go to IGN, where Matt Kim writes, Gearbox's Randy Pitchford steps down as Gearbox Software president, remains as Gearbox Entertainment CEO. The article reads, Gearbox has announced that former Chief Technology Officer Steve Jones will now serve as the new president of Gearbox Software following a leadership shuffle. Gearbox Entertainment co-founder Randy Pitchford will still serve as CEO and president of the Gearbox parent company, and shift his focus towards film and TV as the president of the newly formed Gearbox Studios. Was that confusing? Well, buckle up. Basically, the video game development wing of Gearbox, responsible for games like Borderlands, will now be run by Jones. Meanwhile, Gearbox's parent company, Gearbox Entertainment, which was acquired by the Embracer Group earlier this year, will be overseen by Pitchford. Furthermore, Pitchford will serve as president of new division called Gearbox Studios, which will oversee the company's film and TV projects, starting with the upcoming Borderlands live-action movie. And for me, this really explains why potentially why there was such a focus on the Borderlands movie during E3. Like, it was just Randy Pitchford talking to a bunch of celebrities, which was sort of like weird in the sense that it was one of those showcases where everyone was like, let me live react to this. And it's just Pitchford talking to celebrities. Other reads on the story, at a first headline glance, because the story was reported on by a bunch of different outlets, it's like, oh, Randy Pitchford's out. It's finally happened. And then it's like, oh, no, nah, it didn't. He's just kind of moved around. Which I'm sure we can put on our conspiracy theory caps and say, like, maybe he was made to move around. But I really don't think so. It seems like he's just taking on a different role. And it's clear that Gearbox and like what's going on with Borderlands and everything is expanding into different verticals, and media based on games is really on the rise lately. So it makes sense that they would want to build this out with someone that's had a lot of experience with the company. And also, if you're wondering why do people not like Randy Pitchford? Like, what's wrong with Randy Pitchford? There's a lot there that we could dig into. I don't think we have like quite the time to get into all of it. But one of the more recent issues was the accusations of his USB with the sensitive information belonging to 2K, and also underage pornography and with this USB being found at medieval times. Very bizarre story. Later, Pitchford did go like onto podcasts and talk about like the situation and claim the porn was, quote, barely legal. So I feel like there's a lot of like sliminess going on that front, and even just like Pitchford's general attitude or rumblings of people who've worked with him and what it's like to work for Randy Pitchford. And then even on the more casual level, I remember just like 2 months ago on Twitter, one of Randy's tweets kind of came up across my timeline, and it's astonishing when we get emails from journalists and critics and influencers who spend 3 paragraphs describing how successful they are in the hopes that they will convince us to send them a free code. Sure, here's a code, but bro, Tribes of Midgar is like $20. And like that's just such a horrible attitude to have and such a bizarre thing to write as someone that's in power at a studio and at a company. I mean, obviously, again, now he's shifting over to entertainment. But yeah, like I was like, okay, of course Randy Pitchford would have a sentiment like this about people who work in the industry just trying to like do their job and cover games. But yeah, that's kind of a very brief window into the reasons that people don't like Randy Pitchford and also think that Randy Pitchford maybe shouldn't be in this position at this company at all, or his involvement, or that when they read Pitchford step down, it seemed like maybe his hand would be forced out of the company based on the many years of many allegations and conversations and things that have come up, but that is not the case. So I encourage you to dig more into that information if it's something that you're passionate about catching up on. But yeah, quick Google search should bring up a lot of those different issues that have cropped up over the years. On a much lighter note, there's going to be a Pokemon theme park. For this, I'm pulling from Polygon with the headline, Universal Studios will bring Pokemon to its Japan theme park. The article reads, Universal Studios' theme park in Japan will be adding Pokemon attractions to the park. Universal Studios and the Pokemon Company shared this in a news release Wednesday, saying beginning in 2022, the two companies will enter a long-term partnership to explore new entertainment to immerse park guests in the world of Pokemon. The new attractions will combine real and virtual experiences to create a new revolutionary park experience, according to the release. And for those that might need a refresher, there's also the like Nintendo World sector of things, like the Super Nintendo World, where there's all the Mario stuff. In Universal Studios, it's located in Osaka, so Pokemon is going to kind of be there in addition to that Mario stuff. No word yet, I think, on whether or not the Pokemon stuff will come to the US. I assume it probably will. The like US version, like the Universal Studios that's in Hollywood and Orlando, those are going to have Super Nintendo World, but the Orlando one has been pushed back until 2025 due to COVID. And I forgot the status on the Hollywood one, which I'm really excited about. And I love Universal Studios. But that's kind of the update there. You know, hopefully we see those come to the US. And I just think it's going to be the potential for Pokemon theme park stuff, I think is so cool. I feel like for like a basic kind of quote unquote kids ride, we can do like a Pokemon Snap situation. That seems like a very obvious thing. Bringing Pokemon Go into the park in a big way. Yeah, I don't know. I just want it to be cute and fun. And I'm excited at the idea of like going there and then there's Pokemon. You take pictures of different Pokemon statues but probably just some Pikachu characters walking around and stuff like that. Like, I think it's gonna be super fun. And I'm really excited to see what other stuff they'd add to like the sort of Nintendo vertical of Universal. I feel like Zelda could be really cool, but again, I'm thinking of like stuff that's really big deal IP stuff. And by big deal IP, I mean stuff that crosses over beyond just gaming almost, which I know Mario like has kind of been yes and no, and Zelda to a degree. But Mario is getting that movie coming up. Pokemon obviously has like always been a powerhouse of an IP, like card game, TV show, movies, video games. Like Pokemon is like one of the most powerful IPs like on the planet, I feel like. So yeah, other Nintendo stuff. I don't know. Let me know in the comments and on Twitter what the next Nintendo vertical you want to see come to theme parks be. Also, Pokemon Cafe. That's going to be awesome. Like, Pokemon Cafe Mix, I hated as a game. Thought it sucked. But the art was really cool. So I'm excited. Now let's talk about game events that are coming up. We finally got our date for the Animal Crossing Direct. It's going to be happening on October 15th at 7 a.m. PT. You can tune in for roughly 20 minutes of information about the content coming to Animal Crossing New Horizons in November. A couple quick reads on this. We know it's going to be Brewster. We do know it's going to be Brewster and more. 20 minutes is a really short amount of time. I'm worried this is going to be kind of whack. And I feel like I have a sneaking suspicion that this is not going to be the big content plan many of us have dreamed that it would be. And I know that dream was unrealistic to begin with. And I can own up to that on my end. So like, I should not expect anything because I have not gotten anything. There is no reason to expect anything. But I think the wording of in November, very limited. I feel like it's going to be Brewster and then just talking about Thanksgiving stuff. That's what I worry it'll be. I'm hoping we'll get a few quality of life updates at least, but I'm not optimistic about that 20 minutes, roughly 20-minute time frame. It does not seem like that's going to move the needle very much, but it is only on one game, and I don't know how long they're going to talk about Brewster, so we'll see. I have fading optimism about this event, but I'll be very excited to check it out when it drops. Now let's talk games, releases, and updates. It's a big week because there's been some big deal updates and announcements. From the final Smash Ultimate presentation, we know that there's going to be some extra Mii Fighter costumes, including an Octolink costume, a Judd costume, and a Doomslayer costume. And of course, the really big deal reveal moment was the fact that Sora is in Smash, which you may be wondering, but what does Kingdom Hearts have to do with Nintendo? Well, now it does have plenty of things to do with Nintendo because alongside Sora being in Smash, the Kingdom Hearts series is coming to the Nintendo Switch as cloud games. So that means there's going to be Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix Cloud version, Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue Cloud version, and Kingdom Hearts 3 plus Remind or Remind Cloud version. Those are all going to be available on the Nintendo Switch. And this is it, y'all. This is the final fighter in Smash. What a feat. Honestly, you do really have to give it to Nintendo, to Sakurai, to everybody involved in making all of this happen. It is a wild roster, absolutely gigantic, and it's been a real journey to see people, predict and be excited about, who's going to be there and all that stuff. So we'll have to see what's next for Smash. I think everyone's kind of content with just a little bit of a break for everybody involved because, wow, that was a lot of work to continue to support this game with new fighters and everything. But I'm so curious as to what comes after Ultimate because it's such a big deal and has so much packed into it. I'm wondering how they're going to follow it up, if they're going to follow it up. Some people were talking about on Twitter maybe doing like a kind of a revamp of the series or like a port of like Melee or something. So we'll just have to see what ends up happening with the future of Smash. But definitely an exciting time. And really the nice thing about this is it's one of the few times everyone seemed like pretty happy about it. I feel like even if you don't really care about Kingdom Hearts, like it's a big deal character for a lot of people, and it's a really surprising addition and probably a pretty hard get. So I didn't really see anyone that was upset by this. It's like the one announcement you can make that people are not going to be annoyed by. And speaking of announcements, the GTA Remaster is finally confirmed. There's been so many rumors, so many leaks, but now it's here. It's official. It's the Grand Theft Auto. Its name is Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. Which is a little bit of a lot to say, but that's coming in celebration of the anniversary, 20 years since the release of GTA 3. That's coming alongside upcoming special events and updates happening in GTA Online. It's coming later this year, which has to be pretty soon because the year is almost over. And it's going to be on PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X/S, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and the Rockstar Games launcher on PC. It will also be coming to iOS and Android in the first half of 2022. As far as what to expect, they're saying that they want to include graphical improvements and modern gameplay enhancements for all three titles, while still maintaining the classic look and feel of the originals. And then also a PSA that the older ones are going to be leaving the storefronts to be replaced by this trilogy. Still not clear if like the trilogy is going to be like a one SKU thing, if you can buy them individually or what that situation is. But if you're really passionate about owning the older games, go buy them now before they go away. And Apex Legends is having a Halloween event October 12th and running to November 2nd. It's called the Monsters Within event, in which you fight to conquer the Encore Arenas map, the place where Seer made a name as a man to be reckoned with. Special event limited cosmetics sets highlight the scary side of some of our most fearsome legends, including Revenant, Bloodhound, Caustic, and Seer. And then last but not least, I had to dig into my email for this one because I was emailed about it as someone that recently got a Vita and has been buying stuff on the Vita or playing my Vita. I got an email saying, Hey, like we've seen you've been recently enjoying the PS3 and the Vita, and want to let you know, give you a little update. Starting on October 27th, you can no longer use a credit or a debit card or a payment method such as PayPal to buy digital content or add funds to your wallet when visiting the PlayStation Store on PS3 or Vita. Now, you can still purchase digital stuff, but you're going to have to do an extra step. So you can add funds by redeeming a PlayStation Store gift card via your PS3 or Vita, or by using a credit or debit card, etc., on the desktop or mobile device of a PS4 or PS5, like to add the funds to your wallet, basically. And it's just another example of, things getting older, time passing, and slowly pulling back support on kind of older platforms. So definitely be aware of that if you are making purchases. And if you're like, man, I really don't want to deal with that, and you got some money to throw around, go ahead and make some purchases now so that you won't have to deal with these extra steps. But try to remember this is the situation so that you don't end up lost and frustrated when it's not working for you after October 27th. And those are all the stories we have for this week. Thank you so much for watching over on youtube.com/Gameonysus. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the bell, and for listening on podcast services. And as always, a big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. You too can join over on patreon.com/Gameonysus. We have rewards as low as $1 all the way up to the $25 mark. And as always, I will see y'all here next time. Bye.